Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi 1 week at a time. This is Masechet Menachot, and today is our 9th class. Today we are going to be summarizing Daf 59 through 65. Okay, so Daf 59, the Mishnah tells us that Menachot, we're going to see that different grain offerings, different menachot, need different ingredients. So, menachot that need oil and livona is frankincense, are the solet, the machvat, and the marcheshet. We're going to talk about all these things in a little bit. The chalot, the rikikin, minchat kohanim, the mincha of the kohanim, the mincha of the kohen gadol, the mincha of oved kochavim, if a non-Jew brings a mincha, if a woman brings a mincha, and the Omer. All of these menachot need oil and livona. The minchat nesachim, the grain offering that is a libation that's brought with, it's like an addendum to a regular korban, a regular sacrifice, needs oil, but not livona. The lechem panim needs livona, but not oil. The choteh halechem, which is the bread that's brought on Shavuot, the mincha of the sinner's mincha, and the mincha brought as part of the sotah ceremony, don't get oil or livona. Okay, so those are all of our variables, all, some, or none. Okay, so now the Gemara says we actually listed 10 different menachot. And the reason for that is that you might have thought, or there's another opinion, that you can bring half of one mincha and half of another mincha. And our Mishnah says you cannot do this. The verse teaches that each one of the ingredients is important for that mincha. So, right, a verse teaches that you put oil on the Omer, on the barley offering, which is brought by Pesach time, but not on the lechem panim, right, which is the showbread from every week. The verse teaches that you put livona on the Omer, but not on the minchat nesachim. There's a verse that teaches that choteh halechem does not get oil or livona. The mincha, now basically the way the Gemara goes is it compares each one of these sacrifices to see if you can learn one from the other or not. So the mincha of the kohanim and the barley, the Omer, are more similar to each other, therefore they both need oil. Another opinion is maybe it's similar to the lechem panim, and that the Omer is similar to lechem panim, and maybe it also needs oil. So the Gemara says no. The verse says nefesh, meaning an individual. So an individual's mincha needs oil. Therefore, we include the mincha of the kohen, because that's an individual bringing the mincha. Again, we have menachot that are individual, personal, and we have menachot that are communal. A verse teaches that the Omer, again, the barley, has livona, but not the mincha of the nesachim. Again, or maybe the other way. And again, the Gemara says we compare individual to individual. Okay, sorry, I have a little bit of a cough, so I'm trying to prevent myself from coughing. Okay. Again, mincha, the word mincha includes the mincha that was brought on the 8th day of the inauguration of the Mishkan, and that needed livona, that needed the frankincense, maybe it should exclude it. The Gemara says, no, we can't learn from a law for generations to a one-time experience. Again, the inauguration of the Mishkan was something that happened only once. The verse says, it or she, right? It excludes the shtei halechem that does not get oil or livona. Maybe it excludes the minchat, the mincha of the kohen. The Gemara says no. Again, it's more similar to the Omer and therefore needs both. Okay. The next Mishnah says, you cannot add oil or livona on the grain offering that's brought as a sin offering, what's called a minchat choteh. The minchat choteh does not get oil or livona, and if you put them on, you are liable for each one that you put on. If you added oil, it invalidates the korban. If you added the livona, it actually is still valid, and we'll see why in a minute. If you add oil to the leftovers of that sacrifice, that is not a prohibition. And if you put oil in a vessel and put that vessel on top of the mincha, that is not a prohibition, meaning it means to actually add it to the flour or dough. So now the Gemara explains this Mishnah that, again, we said that if you add oil, it becomes invalid. If you add livona, it's not. Why? Because if you add, right, the verse teaches the difference between oil and livona. Oil, you can't take it off, right? Once you add oil to something, you can't really scoop it up. Therefore, it invalidates the sacrifice. If you add livona, again, it's dry, so then you can take it off, and therefore it is still a valid sacrifice. What if you ground up the livona and then put it on top? Maybe it would be invalid because you can't pick up all the little tiny pieces, or maybe it's still valid because we said livona does not invalidate the sacrifice. Okay, so the Gemara then brings a braita that says that if you add livona and have improper intent, it does not affect the sacrifice because it was already invalid till you take it off. Therefore, if you can't take it off, it would be invalid, right? So we see here an answer to our question. Or maybe that's not the case. Maybe improper intent will affect the sacrifice, even if it has livona on it. And the Gemara says that's one opinion. Or even if you believe in, here the Gemara mentions the concept of dichui, right? If you remember, dichui means that it's something is rejected. And then there's a machloket if something is rejected and then not, and then brought back to, I want to say back to life, but it could then be used. The question is, once it was rejected, is that it cannot be revalidated. So that's a machloket. And the Gemara says, again, depending on the opinion, if you could use it or not. Okay, even if you put a small amount of oil on a kazait, right, an olive's amount of the mincha, it becomes invalid. This is from the verse, lo yasim, don't put aleha on it. So what you're putting it on needs to be at least a kazait. But if you put a kazait of livona on even a small amount of mincha, that would be invalid because it says lo yiten. And therefore, lo yiten is more almost like an official statement, and therefore, what you're putting needs to be at least a kazait, and if it's less, it is not invalid. Okay, Daf 60 tells us that there are two prohibitions, one for oil and one for livona, and it doesn't matter if it was done by one person or two people. As we said, it has to go directly on the mincha and not in a vessel. Okay, now we have the next Mishnah is going to talk about the two procedures that are done with Menachot. One is called hagashah. Hagashah means to touch the mincha to the southwest corner of the mizbeach. Like you take the kli, the utensil, and you touch it to the mizbeach. Tenufah is where we wave the mincha. Okay, so now I actually have some pictures with you. If you are, oh no, wait, sorry, 1 second. No. Sorry, give me 1 second. Stop sharing. I will be with you in 1 second. Share. Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll get to this in 1 second. But I got this image from Rabbi Eli Stefanski. He I didn't ask his permission, but I'm giving him credit, so hopefully that's okay. He teaches Daf Yomi in person and also online. And he has these amazing visuals, videos, and different things. So my father actually listens to the shir and then tells me, oh, there was a great picture that you should use. So here is a visualization of, actually we'll get to this in 1 second. First we'll do this one. This is a table of what needs to be done for which sacrifice, and we'll get to it in a second. First, let's read the Mishnah. So the Mishnah tells us that the following sacrifices need hagashah. Again, hagashah is touching the korban to the mizbeach, but they do not get waved. They don't have tenufah. So the minchat solet, machvat, marcheshet, chalot, rikikin, the mincha of the kohanim, of the kohen gadol, the mincha of the non-Jews, the mincha of the women, and the choteh. So all of those get hagashah, but not tenufah. Another opinion is the mincha of the Kohanim and the Kohen Gadol do not need hagashah either, because there's no kmitza, right? The whole thing is burnt. So now the Gemara is going to explain that you have to do hagashah with all of the mincha, not just with the komets, right? Not just with the handful, but with the entire mincha. It's based on a verse, and also obligatory menachot and voluntary menachot. And this is parallel to the menachot that need oil and livona. If you see the parallel to the menachot, the sacrifices that we just mentioned. Yes, this chart is from the Art Scroll Gemara. We're going to get to the chart in a second. So first, so the Gemara tells us that the minchat Omer, the barley mincha, needs hagashah. So too the mincha of the sotah, and you can't and the Omer is more common because it's brought once a year. The sotah is less common, therefore we cannot learn one from the other. We know that an individual cannot volunteer a korban Omer, a minchat Omer, the barley mincha, but he can bring any one of the 5 types of menachot, which we didn't discuss yet, but they are mentioned in our list above. Shtei halechem and lechem apanim, again, the 2 loaves that are brought on Shavuot and the showbread, the lechem apanim, do not need hagashah because they are not burnt on the altar. Therefore, they do not need to be brought to the altar. Daf 61 tell us that all menachot need hagashah because they're coming alone. When they come by themselves, then meaning not with an animal accompanying them. So then they need hagashah. But the minchat nesachim that comes with an animal, because that comes with a korban, it does not need hagashah. Okay, then you do hagashah, then you take the kometz, that has to be done by hand. Okay. The next Mishnah on Daf 61 tells us the next category. The following need tenufah, but not hagashah. So these are waved, but not touched to the mizbeach. The log shemen, the oil, and the asham of the mitzorah, of the leper, the bikurim, the first fruits, the imorim of the shlami yachid, the insides of the individual's shlamim, the chazeh v'shok, the 2 parts of the animal, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And these are for men and women and all Jews. Okay, then the Mishnah it discusses the shtei halechem, the 2 loaves of bread brought on Shavuot, with the 2 sheep, the kivsei atzeret. So it's 2 sheep, 2 loaves. How is this done? You put the bread on top of the sheep, and then you you hold them together and you move them from side to side and up and down. And this could even be done on the east side of the mizbeach, but hagashah needs to be done on the west side of the mizbeach. If you're going to do both, you need to do tenufah, the waving, before the hagashah, the bringing it to the corner of the mizbeach. We said that the minchat Omer and the mincha of the sotah need tenufah and hagashah, so they need both of them. The lechem apanim and the minchat nesachim don't need either. And then for shlamim, the peace offering, so of an individual, so that needs, that needs smicha when it's alive. If you remember smicha is when you lean on the animal, and then it needs tenufah, waving, after you slaughtered it, after shchita. For a communal shlamim, it needs tenufah before and after shchita, meaning when it's alive, sounds complicated, and when it's dead, it needs to be waved, and there is no smicha. If you're getting confused, that's why I put up this chart. Again, there's no test, but it is interesting to understand. Again, here, bringing near is hagashah, smicha, leaning on the animal, and waving is tenufah. If you want to see it visually, that's this from Rabbi Eli Stefansky. Here he has on the right, hold on. On the right, it says the blue circle is smicha when the animal is alive. That's the blue circle. The green circle is tenufah when it's alive, so waving it when it's alive, and the red circle is tenufah when it is already slaughtered. And I'll just translate on the inside. On the top, yes, this is a Venn diagram. On the top, it has the asham metzorah, which you can see needs smicha when it's alive, tenufah when it's alive. The shlamim of an individual, that's the bottom right, because it's one person standing there. So that needs smicha when it's alive and tenufah when it's not alive. And then the shlamim of the community, that's why there are a lot of people in that circle. They need so for the shlamim of the tzibur, it needs tenufah before and after after, so it basically needs the green and the red, but not the blue. Okay, so that was just like a good visualization, if you appreciate those things. Okay, sorry, 1 second. Okay, the Gemara now continues. So that was the Mishnah. The Gemara says that there's a verse that explains that the metzorah, his oil, and the asham need tenufah together. Or maybe you could do it individually, and it says it needs to be done before God. But you can even do it on the east side of the courtyard. The verse teaches that bikurim, the first fruit, need tenufah. It's done with the kohen and the owner. The kohen puts his hand under the owner, right, the farmer's hand, and then they do tenufah together. They wave it together. Tenufah is done by men, but not women, and not by non-Jews, but a women's sacrifice does need tenufah, and it's done by the kohen. Okay. And now, gerim, converts, and freed slaves, their sacrifices do need tenufah. Daf 62 tells us that you put the emurim, the innards of the sacrifice, on the owner's hands. And this is talking about the different parts of the sacrifice. And then you put the chazeh v'shuk, the breast and the one side of the breast and the leg of one of the sacrifice on top of that. And then you put the bread on top of that. This was done at the Miluim, at the inauguration of the Mishkan. We said that you put the bread on top of the lambs in shtei halechem. This is done based on the verse, but we have one verse that says that the lambs are on top, and there's another verse that says that the bread is on top, so that we say no, it's always that the bread is on top, as we saw in the miluim, or maybe the lambs are on top, but the two right? We're only talking about the two lambs, the two kvasim, but not the 7 lambs that are a different sacrifice. Okay, or another opinion is you actually put the bread between the thighs of the sheep, and therefore it's like both, like the sheep is under the bread and over the bread, but the Gemara says that's not a very nice gift, so we do not do that. Or another opinion is you put the lambs next to the lechem. Al doesn't necessarily mean on, it could also mean next to. Okay, how do you do the waving? You do out and in and up and down. The idea is that out and in are the directions of the winds, right? God controls the winds, and up and down is, right, the same God who controls heaven and earth, right? So basically all the six directions. Or maybe it's against the bad winds. Again, the four directions are the bad winds, and up and down is the bad dew, and that we're trying to stop these bad things. The same thing with the lulav, right? The lulav is back and forth, almost like you're stabbing. So that is another, when we shake it, so some people shake and some people move back and forth. So here is the opinion of back and forth. Okay, the communal shlamim have tenufah after the shechita, after slaughtering, while it's whole, the animal is in one piece. Another opinion is no, after you cut it up into pieces, then you only do it with the chazeh and the shuk, with those certain parts. There's a machloket on how we determine the law, right? Do we compare two things and compare them 100%, right? Don mina umina, we compare them completely, or do we say don mina ve'oke be'atra? We compare things, but up until a point, and then we go back to our original assumptions of what the law is, meaning we change it and don't keep it consistent. So again, are the communal shlamim compared to the individual's shlamim or not? Okay, now the Gemara says that there are three sacrifices that need three mitzvot. Again, the individual shlamim needs smicha, but smicha when it's alive, but tenufah when it's dead. The tzibor, the communal shlamim, needs tenufah when it's alive and dead, but not smicha. And the Asham Metzorah, as we mentioned, needs smicha, right, leaning, and tenufah when it's alive, but not dead. And that's our, the three mitzvot, that's our Venn diagram, but not everything gets everything. Right, each one doesn't get everything. And we can't learn one from the other, and therefore we're left with this. If 5 different people bring one sacrifice, one person does the tenufah. If a woman brought a sacrifice, the kohen does tenufah. And if the sacrifice was sent with an agent, the kohen does the tenufah as well. Okay, daf 63. We have a Mishnah that says that if someone says, I will bring a machvat, which we'll talk about soon, or kind of a little bit. We'll talk about it in a minute. So it's a type of grain offering. If someone will bring a machvat, the person said, I will bring a machvat, he can't bring a marcheshet, or vice versa, meaning these are two different types of grain offering. They were baked in two different pans, and therefore you can't change one into the other. And there, okay, wait, I have another picture. Again, thank you, Rabbi Eli Stefanski. I think these are all AI, but here are different pans. So there's machvat and marcheshet. So, right, maybe the difference is that one has a cover and one doesn't. The other opinion is the marcheshet is a deep pan, and it has a lot of oil. A machvat is shallow, and the things float in it, and it bakes it in a hard way. So you can see here, one looks like a crepe pan and one looks like a pan. Okay. So the Gemara says, Marcheshet from Rachash Libi, my heart stirred, even though the verse is really about something bad, but it means that the Marcheshet actually has a cover. So here is what the Marcheshet looked like with the cover. And the machbat is like lips that are speaking. It doesn't have a cover, or the difference is, again, there's an inside to the pot versus not. And again, here it says that the marcheshet has these like indentations, so it looks like you're making like muffins or I don't know, beignets or things like that. Whereas the flat pan would make something much crispier. Okay, I think that's it for our pictures here. So those are the two pans, machvat and marcheshet. Here in the original Gemara, it also shows this is like on the left is supposed to look like I guess like a frying pan. On the right, you see the circles. So it looks like almost like a pancake pan. Okay. Next, okay. Next, the Mishnah tells us, if you bring a minchat tanur, this is an oven baked mincha. So then there are two types. If you say that I'm going to bring this, then it has to be baked in a tanur, or maybe it could even be baked in a kupach, which is a hotter oven. It was a different shape, right? It was wider at the bottom and narrow at the top. It was hotter, as opposed to the tanur was square. And if you say tanur, you cannot bring half and half. It means even though there are two types, you bring all of one or all of the other. The Gemara says there are two verses, and that includes the kupach or not. You must, bake it in a tanur, and it becomes sanctified in the oven. The Gemara says, but wait a minute, how could that be? We know that lechem hapanim isn't sanctified till the very end. So they say, you're right. It could even be baked outside. It becomes ready to be sanctified, but not sanctified outside. The minchat ma'aseh, the baked mincha, again, you can't do half and half because it's one sacrifice. You have to do all of the same type. And with that, we finish the 5th chapter of Masechet Menachot, and now we are going to start the 6th chapter. Okay, we are going to be talking about minchat Omer. Minchat Omer is the barley offering that is brought during Pesach. So, as I always say, I love when Daf Yomi aligns with our daily lives. It's where we get the concept of Sfirat HaOmer. So we're going to discuss all of these things. So the minchat Omer was brought on the 2nd day of Pesach. It was harvested from barley. So now the Mishnah explains. On Shabbat, again, Pesach could fall out on Shabbat. So on Shabbat, when the 16th of Nisan is on Shabbat, you harvest 3 se'ah, meaning it's a certain volume, but during the week, you do 5 se'ah, meaning you're going to do less on Shabbat, or both of them you do 3. On Shabbat, it's harvested by one person, 1 basket, 1 sickle. During the week, harvested by 3 people, 3 baskets, 3 sickles. Or there's no difference, both are done with 3. So now the Gemara explains that you need 3 se'ah of barley in order to make 1 isaron of flour. Again, we want the choicest flour. We'll see how it is created. Or maybe you need 5 and it makes more, again, either better flour or more flour. 3 might make it, but you need a lot more effort, so maybe it's better to have 5. So the Gemara says maybe it's better to sift more, and then the rest of the service will be easier. If the 14th of Nisan falls out, wait 1 second. Okay, if the 14th of Nisan falls out on Shabbat, so the Gemara now brings up other cases of things that we do on Shabbat when it's Pesach or another Chag, and do we do less or is it the same? So we give the example of the Korban Pesach, and one opinion is that we skin the animal in a different way on Shabbat, so that it limits the effort that is done. Again, in terms of what you're allowed or not allowed to do. Another opinion is we do not limit it and you skin the entire animal. Then the Gemara says, well, maybe this is not parallel to our case, because one is, again, a sacrifice of an animal, and you have to do what you need to do for the sacrifice. But for the Omer, maybe you can cut as much as you need, or maybe it's different because it's one person versus 3 people. We're going to talk about the need to publicize the Omer ceremony because of the Baitusim. We're going to talk about them in a minute. They were a sect during the Second Temple period that caused a lot of problems with the religious Jews of the time. And again, we discussed the importance of it being a public affair, a public ceremony. Okay, then the Gemara brings up another case of slaughtering a communal sin offering on Shabbat. Let's say you slaughtered 2 and you really were only supposed to slaughter 1. Again, you have transgressed with the other one. What happens if the first one actually was invalid and maybe you could use the second one? And the Gemara goes through different permutations of that. Another example is the example from Masechet Shabbat. Let's say you hear that a child drowns, and then a fisherman wants to catch fish, even though it's Shabbat, and he puts his net into the water, and not only does he bring up fish, but he brings up the child. He is still liable because he just intended to fish. He didn't intend to save the child, or maybe he is exempt because he actually did save the child. Okay, so what is the point of this? We try to limit the amount of effort and the amount that is harvested on Shabbat. Okay, the next Mishnah on Daf 64, there's the mitzvah is to bring barley from close to Yerushalayim. If it didn't ripen yet, you can bring it from anywhere else. And then once they tell a story that they needed to bring it from very far. So the Gemara explains you need to bring it from close by because the barley will be better quality when it gets to Jerusalem if it's coming from closer. Or maybe the concept is that you shouldn't pass over on a mitzvah if there is barley growing closer to where you are. And now the Gemara gives the story that in the time of the siege of the Chashmonaim, if you remember the Hasmonean kings, they were good for a while, and then there were some problems. The question was who was going to be king. We had Aristobulus, who was inside Jerusalem, and Hyrcanus, who was outside of Jerusalem with the Romans. And every day, right, you'll remember the story, we have learned it before, every day they would lower money down from Jerusalem down the walls, and after that, they would bring up an animal to bring the korban tamid. And it says that one day an old man told them that they would never win the siege if they kept bringing up korbanot. So once they sent up a pig, and when the pig got halfway up, the whole land shook because it was so terrible. But the idea was that that year they needed to bring the Omer from very far away. A mute man told them where to get it. And the same thing happened with the choteh halechem, to get wheat. The Gemara tells us that it was actually Mordechai who understood what this mute man was saying. And as you remember, Mordechai is very smart, and Mordechai actually understood the intentions of people even when it wasn't clear. And not only that, as you remember, we know that Mordechai knew 70 languages, and therefore they said that he was in charge of the bird pairs, because he could be open to everything that people were saying. He could understand everything. Okay, next Mishnah, on Daf 65. So as I said, in the Second Temple period, there were many sects that changed the tradition, whether they were, most of them negated the rabbinic authority. They said we're only going according to what is in the Torah, in the written law. This is the concept, this is the sects like the Karaites, the Karaim, the Essenes, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, those sects. So basically, the Mishnah and the Gemara are going to say that we need to be very public about the ceremony of the barley to show these sects exactly the right way to do the sacrifice. Okay, or the ceremony. So the Mishnah tells us that the agents of the court would go out before Pesach on Erev Yom Tov and tie the barley into bundles to make it easier for them to harvest the next night. All the cities nearby, the people would come to watch the ceremony the next night. At dark, then now there's going to be a whole ceremony, a back and forth between the harvester and the agents of the court. So the harvester says, is it dark? And they say yes. And then he says it again, is it dark? And they say yes. Should I cut? They say yes. Should I cut? They say yes. And again, everything that he asks, should I use this sickle? Should I use this basket? Is it today? What should I do? And the court goes back and forth telling him exactly what should be done. And as we said, it's against the Baitusim, because they held that you only cut the Omer on Saturday night after Pesach. And we're going to see why that is in a minute. So the Gemara says there were different traditions of the Baitusim that caused a lot of frictions with the rabbis. And therefore, right, what is the case here? The verse says, Mimochorat HaShabbat. After the Shabbat is when you harvest the Omer. Now, you would think that it means literally after Shabbat, which means Saturday night and Sunday. But the rabbis teach us that Shabbat actually means Yom Tov, Pesach. So again, the Baitusim took it literally. The sages understood it to mean the end of the first day of Pesach. And because of this machloket, the Baitusim and everyone else would celebrate Shavuot on different days. If you remember, there's no date given to Shavuot in the Torah. It's only 50 days after Pesach. Sorry, just my son in the army is calling me. I'm going to pause for 1 second and I'll come right back. Okay, thank you very much. I actually had one son who, okay, anyway, he called me right before the class, and this one called me now. Okay, Baruch Hashem. All right, so the now we get to the machloket of the baitusim and the sages. So an old man told Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that the reason Shavuot is always on a Sunday is because Moshe loved the Jews so much, he wanted them to have 2 days of rest. And because Shavuot is really only one day, he made it so that there's always a Shabbat before Shavuot. Rabbi Yochanan says, really? Like Moshe loved them so much? Why did he make them wander in the desert for 40 years? Meaning, obviously, it's not about Moshe and what he wants. It is what God wants. So the Gemara says, no, we needed the verse says that we need 50 days and 7 full weeks. And therefore, the only way to do that is to count from the day after the first day of Pesach, meaning the 16th of Nisan. The Gemara brings other proofs. It says, Tispor lecha, right? You need to count. Only the court decides when you're supposed to count, meaning it's based on the calendar and not based on the day of the week, because everybody knows what the day of the week is. Another proof is that it's compared to shtei halechem, again, the bread that's brought on Shavuot. Both of those are brought at the beginning of the holiday. Therefore, the Omer is also brought at the beginning of the holiday. It says, usfartem lechem. You count, again, for you in plural now. Each person needs to count. And you always have to count only 7 days and not more. And if you only start the Omer on a Saturday night, then from Pesach to Shavuot could be 51, 52, 53, 54 days. And therefore, the Gemara says that it's on the 16th of Nisan and not on Saturday night and Sunday. Okay, I think we are going to stop here and we will pick it up next week. It could be that I scheduled, anyway, class will be regular day next week on Tuesday. I'll make sure that it says that on the website. And wishing everybody a Shavuot Tov and a Shabbat Shalom and Besorot Tovot. And if anybody has any questions, oh wait, I think Ilani asked a question while I was talking. What did you say? Whoa. Hold on. Oh, the chart, then diagram. Yes, Ilanit, I imagine that the Kohen does not do the tenufah with the woman because of tzniut. Yes, because he should not touch her. Yes, it does look like a muffin pan and a beehive shape. So the mute man didn't tell them. He signaled, and Mordechai, because he was so smart, was able to understand what the mute man was telling them. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, he was charading and pointing to things, and therefore he was able to understand. Okay, I see.
Thank you, Rabbanit.
My pleasure. Yes, Aliza, how can I help you? Hello?
I can't.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Oh, there
Yes,
it goes.
I can hear you. I can
What?
hear you.
How come I'm locked out?
I think you were muted and you just have to unmute, but
I tried. Okay, I tried.
okay,
And
I
when
unmuted you.
when you're talking about waving, is it kind of like the lulav?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Forward and
Okay.
back and up and down. Exactly.
Yeah,
Remember we
okay.
brought up the lula. It's exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, any other questions?
Ah, there you go. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Faces are so good. Thank you. Any other questions?
No, but thanks for such an effort when you don't feel well. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. I try. I try.
No,
Uh,
you try, you accomplish. Some people try, you accomplish.
thank you.
You
Thank you.
set such a high bar. I mean, there's not just that, but you must be exhausted, and that's on my mind.
Yes, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Yeah, do you know that we have one more year and we finish the entire Talmud? One
I know
more
it's
year.
coming. It's
I
coming.
missed the first. I think I came in during Eruvin.
Okay, so start catching up. You have a
Yeah.
year. Start catching up.
If you have a machine that creates time, that'll be great.
Car rides and
Yeah,
walk.
this DAF 65 especially had so many famous quotes and in it. I mean, I have seen these referenced so many times, and I've never seen it in its context, in the wild, right here. So here it is. And like you said, right when we need to know about bringing the Omer and everything, lots of fun. That's just really great.
Amazing,
The
amazing.
entire learning of the Gemara is just amazing because, growing up, you learn, this is the way they teach girls in Hebrew day schools, is they say, okay, this is what needs to be done. You don't have the back and forth and the discussion and the arguing and whatever. Because females want to know, okay, tachlis, what do I need to do? So that's how it's taught. We never have the back and forth. And this is just amazing because then you see the context and you see how they reach a certain decision or conclusion. And it just, it gives much more depth.
And I think I like that point you're bringing up. I've thought of that often. It's yes, we need to initially be taught in the way that we need to be taught and to do what we need to do, but we're also raising sons and we're around husbands being supported and all of that, and to understand what they're going through, what they're hearing, how they're learning. There is in the Gemara, it says you should seek to marry the daughter of a rabbi, because should you die, she will be able to teach the sons. So just the idea being she really has been around it. So I agree with Zohar that this is just very, completes the experience in a way. And I'm so glad that we are in a time and a place where that has been opened up to us.
Yes.
Amazing, amazing. I love it.
Reminds
All
me
right,
of
wishing everyone
when she
a
wanted me
great
to.
week
Yes.
and Besorot Tovot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
next
Be
week.
safe.
Be
Good.
safe.
Thank you.
Get
Thank you so
well.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.